Guys, today we will be listening to Dr. G Medical Examiner. It's mostly censored, it only shows blood, but it will occasionally show stuff like atherosclerosis in the arteries. There's topics in here that I want to avoid, like DA, so just let me know if you want to see more of the show, because I can avoid certain things in it. Anyway, on to the video.
I was excited. This is where the money's going to be, I hope.
Dr. G carefully places the first light under the powerful lens and brings the image sharply into focus.
At this point, I'm thinking it must be rabies. And I'm excited because rabies is so rare. You don't get that very often in the morgue.
But when she peers through the eyepiece, she's completely taken aback.
I'm actually quite shocked. I'm expecting to see these little kind of pinkish kind of blobs inside the cells of the brain that indicate that it was rabies. But I don't see anything.
Huh. I do not see any evidence of rabies.
Nothing. The brain tissue looks great. So at this point, I'm frustrated. I'm like, oh, what a letdown. I now have no idea what's going on.
But then, in a slide from the meninges, the membrane overlying the brain, Dr. G spots something that stops her dead in her tracks.
That thin covering over the brain is just packed with little blue cells. I don't even know what those blue cells are. Where did they come from? What are they? I don't know. And these blue cells are everywhere, over the brain, not in the brain, over the brain. I'm like, what's going on here?
Based on the sheer number of these strange cells and their position outside of the brain, Dr. G suspects they must somehow play a role in Leroy's death.
They were everywhere. And they're crowding in there. So I think we have the cause of death. I just don't know what it is.
To solve this bizarre mystery, she enlists the help of neuropathologist Dr. Gary Pearl.
Hey, Dr. Pearl. I couldn't wait till Dr. Pearl looked at this. He's an expert on brains. That's what he does. He knows everything, but he really knows brains. But when Dr. Pearl looks at it, he can't tell what they are either. It's really a mystery at this point.
I ran a very extensive battery on this case because it was so unusual.
I can't wait for you guys to see the
Finally,
microscopics
Dr.
of it.
Pearl's findings reveal the hidden killer, and Dr. G is stunned.
I was really shocked when he told me what it was. And I've been doing this for, 20 years. This is even rarer than rabies.
I'm guessing it's like a 0.1% rarity.
Dr. G now knows that the answer to 58-year-old Leroy Williams' mysterious death lies in the special microscopic slides prepared by
I'll
neuropathologist
put
Dr.
the
Gary Pearl.
glioma cells,
Looking at the
which I think
brain
they are
tissue
in the
is Dr.
thumbnail.
Pearl's specialty. And he has access to special stains that we do not.
The results are startling.
And I was really shocked when he told me what it was. Now that we have our answer, we can really put this together. It's a weird one, but we have our cause of death.
I liked about this that it reenacts
2 weeks
the
before his untimely death, Leroy Williams, an accountant in Kissimmee,
after
Florida,
his
treats
pass.
himself to a well-deserved vacation, his first in over 3 years.
He goes hunting with his brother out in a tent in rural southern Georgia where they're exposed to bats and they're exposed to raccoons.
But Leroy's illness has nothing to do with his exposure to wild animals and has everything to do with something extremely rare going on inside his brain.
This was a very unfortunate chain of events for him that started before he was born.
Now Dr. G knows what the mysterious cells were that she saw in the micros of Leroy's brain tissue.
Those little blue cells are glial
It's
cells.
glial cancer
Glial
then.
cells are cells that usually live inside the brain. They play a critical role in supporting the nervous system, essential to brain function.
But he was born with glial cells that didn't make it into his brain. As the brain's developing, and these just don't make it in there. About 1% of the population will have these little glial cells outside the brain. Normally, they would just sit there and not cause any trouble.
But unfortunately for Leroy, his glial cells become cancerous and multiply.
As with so many cancers, we don't know what triggers that cell on that period of time in this guy to become malignant. We just don't know. And this poor guy just had plain bad luck.
The cause of this cancer is not fully understood, but one thing is certain. As the malignant cells begin to multiply, it sets into motion a deadly chain of events.
These cancerous cells then start proliferating and crowding and irritating the brain, causing then the brain to swell, causing him to have the mental status changes. His state of confusion, his forgetfulness are all a result of these blue cells pushing in on and irritating his
Unfortunately,
brain.
this is
Sadly,
no
his
chance
cancer,
of cure.
visible only under a microscope, is not detected by any of the hospital tests. And as Leroy's doctors struggle to figure out what's wrong and keep him alive, the swelling inside his brain reaches a critical point.
You know, there's only so much space in there, and once the brain swells, that puts pressure on the breathing centers.
With his brain deprived of oxygen, Leroy quickly slips into a coma and eventually dies.
What a tragedy. It is a very nasty disease. Just like rabies, it's pretty much uniformly fatal. In this guy's case, his time was up, and there was nothing really medicine could have done for him.
Hope you
I
guys
immediately
enjoyed
tell
it
the
and are
CDC
learning
that
some
this was a
things.
false alarm. This wasn't rabies.
Dr. G's findings help bring a sense of comfort to Leroy's loved ones.
I know it doesn't bring them back, but somehow knowing at least why they died helps them cope.
I'll leave it here.